So what is going on, guys? I'm BlackOpsAmazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel, where today I wanted to discuss the development cycle of a Call of Duty Zombies game. And I saw some tweets, obviously over on Twitter, by the lead game designer at Treyarch, where he was asked some questions to do with previous Zombies games and what could also link into our most recent one, Vanguard Zombies, which gave me a good insight as to what the development could be like in our most recent game. We've all been asking for Treyarch to interact with the community, I would say, ever since Jason Blundell left. For me at least, ever since then, there has been that one thing missing with Treyarch where we don't really get them coming out and interacting with us anymore like they used to. So whenever I see one of the developers having a discussion with someone talking about zombies over on Twitter, it always interests me, and I thought you guys might be interested in seeing what they have to say as well. So anyway, let's get straight into this. Someone called Skyde asked Mark a few questions. Mark, by the way, in his bio it says he is the lead game designer at Treyarch, but Skyde asked him, "I'm curious, Mark, when the team make these maps, do you guys before release think this one's going to be a classic? Or are you often surprised about how maps are ranked? For example, with a map as revolutionary and innovative as Origins. Surely you guys had a feeling it would be loved." And Mark replied to this by saying, "When I'm making a map, I'm always trying to make it as best as it can be, given the time and resources. Sometimes you can be too close to it to know. You always hope it will be well received, but it can be hard to tell how the public will react. You always hear the same thing when actors talk about their TV/movies. Often my memory of a project is the process to get it shipped. What the public doesn't see is the daily decisions and changes that are constantly shaping it. We don't always like the decisions we make at the start. Sometimes it doesn't play out like it did in your head. Sometimes it never will, and you need to course correct. Our heads have a perfect scenario, free of the problems that need to be dealt with. When the map ships, it hopefully isn't in a big state of flux, but it really is just a moment frozen in time. Sometimes a thing will change 2 weeks before ship, but I only remember the way it was for the last 3 months. Everyone else sees the way it shipped. Origins was one that pushed every department to their limits. It was a lot of crazy ideas that we managed to get to work, and I'm thankful for everyone that worked late and hard to make it awesome." So a few interesting behind the scenes things we learned there. Obviously Mark talking about how in game development, and this also applies to other things like he mentions, actors doing movies and TV shows. I suppose whatever job role you're in, when you're making a product, you don't really remember the start of it, but more so the end part, the final few months when you're bringing everything together. That's the most important part, because that's when you're getting close to the launch of a game, and also in that time, if things need to change, you're then in a race against time. Us, the consumer, we only know about the moment it ships, the moment we get the game in our hands. On day one, when we see things, that's what we remember the game as. But behind the scenes, the developers, in their minds, always remember not only, of course, the development cycle, the whole of it, but especially those final few months leading up to release. And in terms of Origins, which is one of my favourite maps, he says that that was the map that pushed every department to their limits, and that's something I can definitely believe. If you think of the time it released during BO2, I would say the only map that I think comes close to Origins in terms of scale was, you could say, Transit, in terms of it being a big map. I would also possibly add Moon into that as well, especially in terms of trying something different. If you think before that, Zombies was just mainly taking place in facilities on Earth. Pretty plain locations, if you ask me, compared to going to the Moon. I guess that would have also been a big worrying leap. If I was one of the developers during that time, I definitely would have been thinking, is this the right thing to do? Are Zombies fans going to be happy with this? Will they be annoyed the way we are taking Zombies? But Origins was the one map that everyone was pushed to their limits. A lot of crazy ideas came together. If you think of what some of those stuff could possibly be, the obvious one is the giant robots. That for me 100% makes that map. But we also have things such as the Panzer, features like mud slowing you down. That's a big part of Origins as well. And then the 4 elemental staffs, 4 wonder weapons for us to use. The portals go into the crazy place. It's clear to see that Origins was a lot of crazy ideas that came together, and it worked. Anyway, to this, Scout replied, "Super interesting. Leading on from that, Black Ops 3 as a whole, which is widely regarded as the best Zombies. Does the team at Treyarch reciprocate that feeling and recognise why that game was so loved? Because I'm sure when you're putting blood, sweat and tears into these games, the team's perspective may be different. Like, was it simply with Black Ops 3 that the stars just aligned, per Battle Royale era, 3-year wait for Treyarch Zombies, and with seemingly huge funding support throughout the whole season, in ways of cinematic trailers, DLC 5, huge marketing campaigns, content creator events, introduction of boss fights, cutscenes, and so much more? It's a multi-layered question essentially. Was Black Ops 3 Zombies' success believed to be the result of the perfect formula? Or is it hard to pinpoint exactly what went so right?" And Mark replies back to this by saying, "At the time, BO3 got as much love/hate as anything else. People said Shadows of Evil was too complicated, the Ryzen Draka was great, Zetsubo wasn't loved, people didn't want dragons in their zombies, Gorod, too much reuse and revelations, only one new perk, I could go on. Many things were unique for almost every map, including HUDs, mystery boxes, pack-a-punch machines, etc. Then there's Zombies Chronicles, plus there's the nostalgia of old characters interacting with new. It was a perfect storm that's unlikely to be duplicated for many reasons. What we can do is try and make new things that's great in a different way, instead of chasing something that's too similar to a previous one. And that in and of itself would end up being called a negative 2. We are planning great things, you'll just have to wait to see. So there's a lot to go here. We all know that Black Ops 3 is regarded by most people as the best zombies experience we have had to date, as Mark mentions. He knows that. He says Black Ops 3 Zombies was the perfect storm that's unlikely to be duplicated for many reasons, but it wasn't perfect because it got as much love and hate at the beginning that any other zombies game did. And I've actually done a video on this not too long ago, where I said that if you look at the release of every zombies game, Black Ops 1, BO2, BO3, 4, Cold War, Vanguard, at the beginning of every zombies game, there is always love and hate. With Black Ops 2, it was Transit, that got a mixed reception. At the beginning of Black Ops 3, as is mentioned here, we had Shadows of Evil, that had a mixed reception. At the beginning of BO4, we had a load of maps, Voyage of Despair, 9, Blood of the Dead, Classified, all had their own receptions. It was the same for Cold War, and we know especially it's the same for Vanguard. However, most of those games, as you get towards the end of their life cycles, or as you pass a few years and you look back on them, we can go back now and say Black Ops 1 was a great game, so was BO2, Black Ops 3. A lot of people like Black Ops 4 now when they didn't used to. Then again, some people still don't. It's the same with Cold War. The question is then, will we get that same response for Vanguard? How will that turn out once it's finished and we've passed a few years? But Black Ops 3 was the same as any game. When it released, that game's launch map was Shadows of Evil and The Giant. I was around during that time and I can remember a ton of people saying, we don't want aliens and zombies. The Pack-a-Punch is too complicated. Why do we have to do these same rituals over and over again? It definitely wasn't loved by most people, but now here we are a few years later, and to me, I actually think it's the best map of all time. It's definitely up there in my top 3. It goes on to say Duraz and Draka is great. I do think since the beginning until now, that map has always been loved. And then we had Gorod, where people didn't want dragons and zombies, similar to how they didn't want aliens and zombies and shadows. And he also mentions how Revelations reused too much. The game as a whole only included one perk, which was Widow's Wine. It was far from perfect, but one thing they did try to do in Black Ops 3 was make almost everything in each and every map unique, with their own HUDs, unique mystery boxes, unique Pack-a-Punch machines. If you think of the Pack-a-Punch machine we had in Shadows of Evil, if you also think of the mystery box we had on that map, plus there was our beloved characters Richtoff and Takio Nikolai Dempsey. Even though it's considered to be the best game, that doesn't mean at the beginning it was loved by 100% of the players. But still, by the end when everything came together, it ended up being the perfect storm, and Mark says that's unlikely to ever be duplicated for many reasons. And then right at the end where he says, what we can do is try and make a new thing that is great in a different way, instead of chasing something that is too similar to a previous one. We are planning great things, you'll just have to wait and see. Could that be a hint at what we could be seeing for the future of Vanguard Zombies? Clearly he's talking about zombies, so either he's referring to Vanguard Zombies when he says they're planning great things, we'll just have to wait and see, or he's talking about their next game in 2023. But whatever it is, apparently there are big plans to come for zombies. Could that be for Vanguard? Possibly. Or could he be referring to their next game? So there we go. That is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.